Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the Media Booth. Probably the last one for 2023, and maybe we'll go into season two. I don't know how we're going to do the numbering, but I've been hemming and hawing about talking about this one. This was actually brought up in a discussion on the Facebook group, which I highly recommend that y'all be a part of. Like I said, we talk about other stuff that's not just technical, and that's where I want to kind of talk about this issue. You see the title, Handling Conflict in the Team. So, if y'all are aware of the post that I'm talking about, I'm not going to name the person, not going to name that. That's just why you need to be a part of the media group, Facebook group. But my dad always used to say that being a pastor was one of the hardest jobs he ever had, because you have to lead a bunch of people that you can't fire, and get everybody to work together. I would say after that, I would add being a minister of music and a choir director was probably the second most difficult, for that same reason. But now I would probably say typically the average, I would say probably media ministry is tied with music ministry, or it's a number three. For that same reason, because the majority of churches, they don't have paid staff, so they're volunteers. So back in this issue that was brought up, you have a leader in who's over the media ministry, and then there are a lot of volunteers that aren't going along with the program. Is the nicest way I can say it. They have expectations and goals of what the media ministry should and shouldn't do, deliverable times, attending meetings, stuff like that. And a lot of those things aren't being done. And the question was, how do you handle this? So I'm going to come from two different angles with this. So again, this is not gospel. This is not me telling you this is how it should be handled. This is just how I would handle the situation. And let's go from a biblical standpoint first. First, if you have an issue with somebody, you need to pull that person to the side privately and you have a conversation with them. If it's not received, then you bring a mutual party that will be there, so it's being put in front of them as somebody to be kind of like a mediator between the whole thing, so they can hear both sides. If that's still not accepted, then it needs to be brought before leadership. I guess that's another step that you can bring in to bring that up. And if it still not happens again, then you bring it up in front of the entire church. And if they have a problem and it's still not being resolved, then they need to be dismissed, point blank, because now it's going to cause conflict. So that's biblically how you're supposed to handle that if you have an issue with somebody. Now, how I would do that is similar of the same way, because this is my mindset. And that was number one, this is number two. My mindset is this. If you have somebody on your team who's not trying to go along with the plan, sooner or later, they're going to cause a downfall to that team. They're going to cause dissension inside the team. They're going to start probably pulling people away. It's going to become unorganized, and it's not going to be as effective as possible. So for me, not from a harsh type of standpoint, this comes in my mind of like, okay, either they don't understand what the mission is of the media, or maybe they're associated with a ministry out of obligation, and this really isn't their calling. So my thing would be is trying to find what that is, and hopefully try and help them find their ministry. Because if this was their ministry, I sit back and in a tactful way would try and ask, if this is how you want to present yourself and be kind of disrupt the flow of how we're having stuff ran, how would you handle that if they were in charge and somebody else in the ministry was doing what they're doing? Meaning that I like to bring to people's attention that, hey, look, I'm not trying to call you out like as if it's a personal attack, but just realize that if this is how you want to resolve this, how would you handle this if this was done by somebody else and you were in charge? It wouldn't work. Because ultimately, I don't want to have anybody associated with the ministry who is just, we're button heads for the reason of button heads, meaning that if you were elected, like when I was the head of the media ministry, I was elected to be the president. I didn't use that title unless it came to a final decision of a situation or a tiebreaker. That's the only time I would do that, or I would help lead and be the um, contact when anybody had to engage with the media ministry for good or bad. So I took whatever, the good and the bad, that came to me. So I shielded the media team. So that would be my mindset, but I didn't pull rank unless I had to. And those would be those moments. So I hope it doesn't seem like I'm trying to walk around the issue, because I'm really not. The main thing is I don't want to have anybody in the media ministry, in a volunteer standpoint, that thinks that I'm just going to do whatever I want to. That defeats the whole mindset of having a team approach. And if somebody has that mindset, I would go through those 4 steps that are outlined, how if you have conflict with a brother and sister, how you deal with that. And then ultimately, I'm like, if you can't get with the program, I would try and help you find another ministry to be associated with, to volunteer with, because your actions and your service is not needed in this, because you're causing more harm than good, especially if you're missing deadlines, not attending meetings. If you're not attending meetings and the trainings that are there, then you already have kind of disqualified yourself from being a part of the ministry in general, because things are changing. You're not being up to date with how things are working. So I tried to be as PC about that as possible, which kind of outlines how, my thoughts of how I answered this inside of the group. But let me know down below, how would you handle that? Again, this isn't technical. This is about us talking with a team, and we need to be a cohesive group. If we have like a weak link in there that's trying to disrupt everything and all the progress that we're doing, it's going to make everybody's work more difficult, and not just inside the ministry, but what the ministry is actually doing is going to be difficult for us to be able to minister to the church, to our community, to the state, to the world at large. If, our live stream is horrible because Sister Sally decided not to come to training to see how these new cameras work, or this new system works, or this, it affects other people. So let me know down below, what are y'all thoughts about that? I kind of left this one wide open because, again, I just telling you how I would handle that. But this is one of those things, just like with the group, it's a community thing, because a lot of us are going through things that, it's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, especially with people who are in the same field that you're doing. So leave a comment down below. What do you think? How would you handle this? And let's keep the discussion going. So thanks for watching, folks. This is another one with the Media Booth, and we'll be talking with y'all later.